Welcome to the F50 Woman Podcast, dedicated to sharing stories from a diverse community of women in order to provoke you into a passionate pursuit of life, build unshakable character, and achieve extraordinary things. Now, here is your host, Julia Jack.
This young girl started out as a teacher. She, through trial and sacrifice, went on to earn her MSW in administration, working in macro social work. If you have no idea what that is, you're in the right place listening to the right podcast. At the taping of this chat, she was the Director of Middletown Works. But shortly after this taping, she rose to become the Chief Operating Officer at the Prudence Crandall Center. As she continues to rise on the outside professionally, she also grows incredibly on the inside. She's not 50 yet, but she's poised to be one of the wisest older women we may ever know. You don't want to miss this chat with Rebecca Lemanski, Executive, MSW, mother, and dear friend, and another up-and-coming F50 woman. Hey, thank you for joining. This is F50 Woman. Today I am here with Rebecca Lemanski, and she is an old friend of mine. I think she's an incredible woman. She is a macro social worker, and I'm hoping that she'll share what that is. She has been dedicated to a career in empowering and strengthening families, groups, and organizations and communities. She focuses on resiliency and connection as a way to create change in individuals and communities. She believes not in right answers, but in dialogue and respect. Each individual and system is unique and diverse. Therefore, she takes time to honor diverse perspectives, listen to ideas, and maintain a stance of curiosity with stakeholders. I so totally agree with all of that. I think it's just communicating, connecting, listening. That's what's going to bring about change in relationships, communities, lives, and just individual people. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for being here.
Thank you so much for that wonderful, warm welcome. It's so good to be here with you and just with an old friend. And, again, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I've always known you as someone who has connected with people for who they are, where they are. And I just love that about you. So I'm excited to hear about how this all started. And please tell us about what you were like, what you wanted to be when you were a young girl. Tell us about little Rebecca.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the question. When I was younger, I always thought that I wanted to be a teacher. And so for me, growing up, school really played a big role in my life as a younger woman, as a young girl. It provided me with safety and security and stability, things that I didn't receive regularly growing up in my household. So, I was often referred to, this is kind of embarrassing, but I was often referred to as a teacher's pet, which at the time kind of was like mixed. I felt good because I had the teachers paying attention to me and giving me those things I didn't receive at home. But on the other hand, I had the other kids that were kind of didn't really like that and kind of made fun of me and that kind of a thing. But growing up, I would teach school in our basement. My sister and I would have like friends over and we had a chalkboard in the basement and we would pretend to play school and things like that. But I think really, again, that the reason why I wanted to be a teacher was because teachers in school, again, provided me with what I didn't get at home. And so I always thought I wanted to be like that when I grew up. And what ended up happening is, I ended up getting my bachelor's in elementary education when did I get it? Let's see, 1998. And so I got certified then in kindergarten through 6th grade. And then I sort of went into early childhood education. So I got certified to do that and worked for a couple of years in early childhood education. And I really, at that time, was like, I'm really not in the right field. I'm just not in the right field. I knew at that time that I really wanted to make more of an impact in the community, in people's lives. Some of the things I was seeing in the daycare, I had worked in inner city in Hartford, and I saw some very, very disturbing things. And I just knew that I needed to be in an area where I could make more of an impact. And so that was really where my desire for social work was born. And then from there, I sort of pivoted into what is known as community-based services, a field of social work.
I mentioned macro social worker. Is that what that is? It's basically community-based work?
Well, that's a really good question. So my career again, like I said, in social work started in community-based services. And so that spans all the way from micro to meso to macro. And what that means is when I started, I was working more kind of doing direct service with parents, working in the home, doing home visits, again, working more at the individual and the family level, which would be considered micro and meso. And then after spending about 10 to 12 years at community health center, in parenting support services, in the community-based services department, I worked my way up and began to take classes on social work, graduate courses, and then slowly but surely ended up getting my master's in social work, and then got promoted at that job to program manager. And so then when you think about program manager, I was sort of responsible for marketing the program and communications and doing things more on that level. And so then you're starting to think about more like the macro level. And then what I do now is, after that position ended, I took a job as the Director of Middletown Works, which is a economic initiative. It's a Working Cities Challenge initiative through the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. And that's really sort of a macro level social work job, if you will. You could call it that. So it's working kind of on the policy level, administrative level, with communities, groups, and organizations, working on larger scale social change. So micro, working with an individual might be, if they're dealing with, for example, depression or anxiety, you might try to help them deal with that, right? That's what we think of a typical social work kind of / therapy clinical. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a clinician. So I, again, do macro social work, which is thinking about, for example, a wicked problem, if you will, they're called, which is like poverty, right? So looking at those really large scale issues of, again, racism or poverty or discrimination, and really how do we work across systems to break these things down, dismantle them, change policies, change procedures, look at how we're doing things, look at how do we make things easier for people that are struggling to, for example, make ends meet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Macro, meso, and micro. Good. So that's a good segue into you now. Tell us about Rebecca now. What do you do? Tell us about who you are, what you like, whatever you want to share about you now.
Yeah, thank you. So just being a macro social worker, one of the things that for me, after I got my master's in 2016, I thought, wow, what am I going to do now? Like, what do I really want to get into, right? And so working in the field of, again, community-based services and working with lots of families and children and, teenagers that were impacted by so much abuse and trauma and mental health challenges and substance misuse, it just really made me think about the things that we go through as children, and this idea of, and you may have heard of it, but the concept of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And I started to really delve down deep into the research behind ACEs and the science behind ACEs. And there's 5 pieces of it. And the 5th piece of the science behind ACEs is the research on resiliency. And I really developed just a real love and a passion for the research on resiliency and started to just learn all I could about it. And so at that time, I was like, what can I do here? I've got this platform. I was promoted to program manager. And I says, I brought it to my supervisor that I had wanted to organize a conference on resilience. So basically, making a long story short, we started bringing together a whole bunch of different stakeholders in the community, and people were like, wow, this is a really great idea. Like, I want to get involved in this. And so what ended up happening is these meetings turned into, our community really needs more than just a conference on resilience. And so through these meetings and through bringing together all different stakeholders from our town and Middlesex County, we thought we needed some sort of a collaborative or a coalition or some sort of a group. And so we brainstormed our name, and we ended up call ourselves the Community Resilience Collaborative of Middlesex County. So that was sort of born in 2017. And the whole idea is that we have a vision that, all people will live, work, and play in resilient and trauma-informed communities. And then our mission is just really to identify, create, and support trauma resiliency focused education, awareness, and capacity building for families, groups, and organizations.
Okay.
And so that's kind of, you know, what I do now is this idea about building our individual resiliency, but also when we do that, it's building resilient communities.
Yeah.
Through
Okay.
various workshops and tools, which I can share with you in a minute. But
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Resilient. What was that? Resilient community. Say that again. Resilient.
yeah, so I kind of found out just through my
Because I've never
work
heard of
and
ACEs. No, never heard of
oh,
that.
really?
And
Yeah.
I
Oh,
thought I
wow.
thought this idea of resiliency was just a new word for self-empowerment.
It goes a lot deeper. Yeah. So again, the ACEs science. So the ACEs study was actually done in around 1995 to 1998. It was a partnership between Kaiser Permanente and this, I think it was the CDC, but
Okay.
two doctors came together and they did some research on, I think it was like almost 17,000, mostly white people. But what they found that, you know, that many of these people experienced some adverse childhood experiences, and they were
Right.
causing lots of health issues in their life. And so originally the survey looked at 10 areas of household dysfunction, things like parental mental health challenge, parent incarcerated, neglect, abuse, things like that. Subsequent ACE surveys include community ACEs and environmental ACEs. So community ACEs, things like
Okay.
racism, historical trauma, oppression, lack of quality housing, things like that. And then you've got the third component of ACEs, which include environmental things. So things like natural
Okay.
disasters and the pandemic, right? And
Right.
so these kinds of things happen to us. But the good news is that, and this is something that I learned through my training that I just did a couple of months ago on the community resiliency model.
Mhm.
The good news is that as human beings, we're all designed in pretty much the same way. So in other
Right.
words, we all have nervous systems, and the way that we respond to traumas and stress is very similar, right? And so this model, the community resiliency model, teaches us that it's not about human weakness,
Okay.
that it's about our biology.
Okay.
And the model teaches us 6 biologically based wellness skills to help bring our bodies and minds back into a state of balance.
Okay. So you're a little girl, you're a teacher in the basement with your sister. And then now you're a macro social worker, really involved in communities and bringing about resiliency. How did you get there? Where was the moment that you shifted? It seems pretty somewhat linear, but I have a feeling it wasn't. So tell us about that middle ground and how did you get from there to here?
Thank you for asking me that, because it definitely wasn't linear.
Okay.
It sounds like it, and I would love it to be, but
Never is, right? Yeah.
no. Well, what ended up happening is in 2005, I was still in the social work field, and, I was working in community-based services, and I was faced with an unexpected challenge, and it left me alone, afraid, just really in emotional despair. And it was an unexpected pregnancy.
Mm.
And so it really forced me at that time to, reassess my situation and do some change of plans. And so, matter of fact, at that time, now that I'm thinking of it, I wasn't working the full-time job in community-based services. I was working 2 part-time jobs. And so I knew that I needed a more consistent schedule. And so that's when I ended up finding a job at Community Health Center. During that time, while I was preparing for my own journey of motherhood, I was working with other parents, other moms, helping them to, create a secure attachment with their children, promoting attachment-based parenting skills, and then teaching positive discipline techniques.
You were already doing that work with other parents when you found this out.
Correct. Yep. I was working with parents before I got pregnant and during my pregnancies. Just really ironic,
Yeah.
And so, the job that I ended up getting at Community Health Center, it provided me, with a lot of, again, stability, and flexibility to be able to work, take care of my baby. I was able to take a little bit of time off. I found a daycare down the street from where I worked back then. And I just had no idea how single motherhood would impact both my college and my career experience.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're aware, Julia, but part of what I've learned in my job as Director of Middletown Works, helping to lift up other single parents here in Middletown, was that single parent households is actually a rising demographic that's been steadily increasing ever since the 1960s. So again, majority of children still do live with two parents, but the second most common type of household is children living with a single mother. And so, again, at the time, just being a single mom was very intense, especially being a student and an employee. 5 years after that, when my son was 5, I applied at Springfield College. So they have a social work program. There was a weekend program. And so I got right in and I did, every other weekend took classes and I did my first year. And then, what ended up happening was I was faced with another decision. And so I thought, wow, how can I continue working full time, taking care of my son? And then with social work, when you get your master's, you've got to do a 15-hour-a-week internship and then another one, a 20-hour-a-week internship.
Right.
And I thought there's no way that I can do this because my son has to come first. And so at that time, I made a really difficult decision and ended up taking a leave of absence.
Wow. Okay.
So consulting with the staff at Springfield College, and I had to take a leave of absence. And really at the time, it was devastating for me because it felt like such a loss, like I almost felt like a failure, but I knew that I had to put my son first because I was his only parent too.
Yeah.
So
as moms, we oftentimes feel like we're failing when we're trying to put something first. It's such a challenge, emotional and psychological, I imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so just to kind of wrap the story up, basically, I continued working in the field as a parent educator. And I at the time was supervised by someone who had her license clinical social work. So she actually was a therapist and she, had her master's, but she saw families in the office. And she kept encouraging me to continue pursuing my master's, continue going after it. And so what I did was, after that leave of absence in 2014, I applied to UConn School of Social Work for the administration concentration to challenge myself, to learn some leadership skills, and to kind of elevate my career. Yeah. But what I didn't tell you before was that this was my third time applying to UConn.
Wow.
So the first and second times I applied early in my career, I didn't get accepted.
Wow.
And, so this was really, really a big deal for me. UConn was my original choice. And for me, it tied in the fact that, I showed myself that I was persistent, I had grit, and I was resilient, and thought, wow, when we really want something, we can really do it and we can pursue our goals. We can achieve our goals. So again, I persevered through continuing working in the field and ended up earning my master's in social work administration in 2016.
Nice. Stuff. Good stuff. What was the magic bullet the third time?
Oh, the magic bullet, well, a couple things, right? So I was more experienced in the field. I had all those years, almost,
right.
I don't know, like 10 or so years in the social work field, right? Yeah. I was more prepared. I was more mature. I was at a different level professionally.
Okay.
I also met with the dean of the school and asked her point blank, I says, what can I do to make sure I get in? I says, I didn't get in the first 2 times. And she gave me some really good advice.
That's great.
One of the reasons why I didn't get in, I don't think my transcripts were in on time.
Oh,
preparation,
a
technicality type of thing, right? And then the other one, it might have been because my essay wasn't as strong. But at any rate, I went and I did my due diligence.
Yes.
Was prepared, was in a different place, had all this experience, went above and beyond this time. And it showed me that I was really ready. Definitely was not an easy journey.
I want everybody to really hear that if you want something, it may not be easy, but don't keep doing it the same way. Don't just send the resume and think, well, I should get in this, not the resume, but the application, and think I'm going to get in. Do something different. Go talk to somebody, ask questions. What did I do wrong? Can you look at this?
Yes, such a great point. Thank you for pointing that out. Absolutely. And it took me some time to realize that, right? Like the first 2 times I really kind of did it, I would say maybe the same way. And then I said, okay, something needs to change. What needs to change? Maybe it's my approach that needs to change.
Right.
And so just that growth and that journey, it's like, okay, we learn that we can do things differently. And sometimes it takes takes us actually going through, because it took me a few years to learn that and whatnot.
It's a very good tool for others.
If you are enjoying the F50 Woman podcast, don't forget to share your positive comments and ratings and share us on all your favorite social media channels. F50 Woman is a movement created for women, spread by women. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show and your host, Julia Jack.
So did you have a mentor? Who along this way did you lean on, or do you lean on to help you, whether it's a formal mentor or informal? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great question. So I do have several mentors. I won't share about all of them, but I will share about one that's made a pretty significant impact in my life. And she was actually a mentor that I still keep in touch with from when I worked at Community Health Center. I can share her name. I'll just share her first name, but her name is Casey.
Okay.
And I've known Casey for probably over 10 years. And again, like I said, we met at Community Health Center, but she was just really there for me throughout all the pivotal moments of my life, personally and professionally.
Okay.
So, working, I remember she was in a different department than me, but she would invite me like sometimes to different staff meetings or different meetings to share different things with her staff. When I became a single mom, she was there for me when I was going through some struggles and, kind of supported me. And I remember, I think she sent me a card one time and a gift and just little things like that, really being able to talk to her about some things. She was actually a single mom at one point in time as well. And then, when I applied to get my master's, she wrote me an amazing letter to one of my letters of reference to get in to get my master's, and then now in my life, she's written me, I think, a couple of letters of recommendation for jobs. When I got promoted to program manager, she actually was my supervisor. She became my supervisor at that time. She advocated for me and gave me my promotion, but she also helped me and role model with me and practice with me how to negotiate with human resources to get a higher salary, which made a
amazing.
Huge impact in my life and the life of my son. And I will never forget that.
Yeah.
It was just so important to me. And it meant so much to me. She took the time out to sit with me in her office. I took down notes and we role played what I would say to human resources so that I could get a higher salary. And what an amazing gift she has been in my life. Yeah.
Who knows how to do that? I mean,
exactly.
Who knows how to do that? Yeah.
Exactly. You really need someone helping you, right? And it's like, so that's what this is all about. It's like, how can we, like the whole concept for your podcast, right? Like, how can we share what we know with others to help them grow or to help them get a step up or a leg up? And so that's just so important to be able to give it back.
Yeah. So all of you ladies out there, find somebody to advocate for, or if you have somebody advocating for you, value them and stay in touch with them. Even if you leave the company, they care about you. When you find somebody who cares about you, stick it through with them.
Absolutely.
So that's amazing.
Absolutely.
So what was her name again?
Casey.
Casey, thank you so much. I don't know. I'm going to find you. Help me to negotiate salary. I mean, and I don't know if it's a man and woman thing, but I definitely know that women typically just, okay, that's what I got. So I'm just so thankful that I got that little bit, and might not even know that you can get more, or you can negotiate time off or benefits, or,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Oftentimes what I've read and just, research shows, and I like to read a lot and everything, but that women oftentimes will discount ourselves. Like we won't apply for that job if we don't have 100% of the skills, where research kind of shows that men will apply for jobs that maybe they only have 70% of the skills. And I'm not about that. I'm like, what, someone that I know in my network says, here's a job I found. And it was a president and CEO position. And I'm like, I'm going to apply for it.
Why not?
You know what? I may have 80% of the stuff on here or 75. You know what? I deserve to get a shot at this.
Yes.
I've got something to offer. I'm willing to learn and grow.
Yeah.
I may not know everything that there is to know, because you never will, but I'm going to at least give myself a chance to apply for it. Whether I get accepted for an interview is another story, but why not give myself a chance?
And how do you get to do that thing if you've never done the thing? I don't understand how that works. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You have the foundational skills and you know how to find the information.
Absolute
Yes.
110%.
Yeah. So I say
Yep,
go
I'm
for
a
it.
big believer of that. And it's like, it feels scary, but it's like at the end of the day, gosh, I mean, what do we have to lose? I
Yes.
might just not get a call back, but maybe I will.
But maybe you will, and maybe you'll be the best one they ever had. Yeah. They didn't even know they were looking for you. So So you're walking down the street and you see young Rebecca with her head down. She might be pregnant or she may be the young Rebecca. What is the one piece of advice you would give her?
Yeah, I guess, I would say the one piece of advice is I'm going to say it's about trust. And I'm going to say that I would tell her
Hmm.
to look deep within herself and know that she can trust herself,
Wow.
that she really does have the answers, to know that you are loved,
Hmm.
to fully embrace yourself, and again, to trust not only yourself, but the journey that you will go through, because there'll be many ups and downs and twists and turns, but to always come back to yourself and know that you've got that inner wisdom, that inner knowing that you can trust yourself.
That's great.
And
Yeah.
to know that, because I never had anyone tell me that I could. And
Yeah.
I'm just now learning that now, what does that mean to trust yourself?
Okay. So you not trusting yourself, you felt like you were looking for answers outside. Did you look for it in books or people, or what did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, just like
Hmm.
looking for love in all the wrong places. So,
Okay.
relationships with men, looking for answers in books. And sometimes you might find them, and sometimes maybe they're not helpful, or just looking for validation outside of myself. So,
Yeah.
feeling like, oh, if someone doesn't tell me I'm good, then I'm not good. Or if someone doesn't recognize this, then it's not good enough, or something like that. Or just second guessing my intuition. Really, that's what it looks like. It's like
Yeah.
having an inner knowing,
Yeah.
but then doubting myself, doubting that I actually know what's best for myself,
Yes.
and ignoring that and going with something that maybe doesn't feel quite right,
Yeah.
because I'm not trusting that inner knowing.
Yeah. And I think we do that a lot. And the more you do it, the voice gets numb or
Yeah, the
or
voice
dead or
gets
something.
quieter. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's harder to hear that voice. It's
Yeah.
still there, but it's becomes, like you said, more numb or quiet, or
Yeah.
like covered up with dirt, or however, like in the fog, or so to speak, or
Right. Yes. Yeah. Muffled and yeah. Almost like that person telling you, hey, 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 listen, I got something for you. And you're just like, shh, be quiet.
yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah. That's a real thing,
Exactly.
I think, for probably more women than we realize.
I think so
A lot
too.
of us
Yeah, I
walk
mean,
around looking confident, but we're
that's right.
hearing the whisper and completely ignoring it.
That's right. Yep, that is it. I'm sure there's got to be more that are having that
Mhm.
issue, and how do we trust ourselves, and how do we not doubt ourselves, and
Yeah.
almost like be our own worst enemy. It's sometimes, I have a good friend of mine, that he tells me, like, sometimes I could be my own worst enemy, and don't do that to yourself.
Yeah.
Don't talk to yourself that way. Don't tell yourself those things.
There you go.
You
Yes.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Would you say that to your best girlfriend? What you're saying to yourself right now? You know?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, Rebecca, what's next for you? What's the next chapter look like? Let's look forward.
Yeah, I mean, so what's next? I would say that, right now, I've got a few more months left of funding for my current position. And, so for me, I'm really searching for my next opportunity, sort of that macro level social work job, sort of a community impact work, collective impact, community engagement. I've, been working with a career and personal branding coach, and sort of getting, all that good stuff up to speed, my
Okay.
resume and my LinkedIn. And so that's what's next. Also continuing to do the community resiliency model trainings.
Okay.
So we offer those, they can do 2 hour, a 3 hour, they can, organizations can do a 2-part training where it's like 2 hours one day and then
Mhm.
2 hours the next day, right? So definitely continuing to spread these community resiliency skills by offering these trainings, and again,
Yeah.
collaborating with other people and other organizations
Mhm.
to bring these skills to more people, especially marginalized communities, people of color, people who who may not have access to lots of resources to help themselves, or who may not have like healthcare. That's really important to me, is spreading the awareness to other communities like that. So I have an LLC that I haven't really done much with that I'd like to do something with.
Okay.
And so those steps will be to come, but that'll be for the next conversation, because that's sort of in the works,
Okay.
but at the very beginning, baby stages. So
Nice. So lots of open opportunities forward. You mentioned resiliency training for companies. I really, really get it when it comes to communities, whether they're marginalized or not marginalized communities. I can see resiliency in all communities, really, at different levels. But when it comes to companies, how does that work? What do we need in terms of resiliency in our companies?
yeah, I mean, it's a really great question. And here's the thing, when you think about people and families and individuals and communities, so individuals are people that work in companies. And so we all, whether we've experienced trauma or not, are affected by it in some way or another. So even if a person has not experienced any trauma themselves, they still do from time to time experience stress. Or they may have family or friends who have experienced trauma. So when we talk about bringing the community resiliency skills to, for example, companies, we want our hopefully we would want our employees to be empowered, to be healthy, to be at their best selves. And so the community resiliency model trainings teach us how to do that. They teach us how to bring our bodies, our minds, and our spirits back into a natural state of balance.
Okay.
It's called the resilient zone. And when we're in our resilient zone, we are able to function better. We are able to handle challenges in a better way. We're able to really be our best self.
Okay.
And so I would think that any company, any person running a company would want their employees to really be at their best selves.
Yeah.
And really functioning well for the company and for themselves. And so it just really could be less calling out, more higher productivity, more happiness, that kind of stuff.
Yes. Okay. And you find that companies are receptive to that, or are they sort of like, what?
Well, we haven't really approached too many companies. We've done these trainings now in mostly like the nonprofit world. So we've done some, like, for example, at the Middlesex YMCA. We've held some at the Clifford Beers, for the Clifford Beers staff in New Haven, the Connecticut Women's Consortium, a couple of other nonprofits around our area here. But so we haven't tapped into the business community yet, although it's something that I would love to. That actually might be one of the next steps, is like, how do we bring this into, for example, the business community? Because there's definitely a case for it. It's just, we haven't quite gotten there yet with this, but.
Absolutely. It seems like this resiliency model and all this talk about diversity would marry well.
Absolutely.
Or at least be good partners at the very least.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
So I have one, I call it a random question because it's just a question of my lifetime. Why do you think evil spreads faster than love? Or do you even believe that's true?
Yeah, this is a very tricky question. And I guess when I hear that question, do I even think evil spreads faster than love? And I guess for me, and I don't know if it's just because I live sort of, I tune out, like I don't watch a lot of the news. I really try to make an effort to not get sucked into that kind of stuff. I feel like that's sort of evil right there. But I would like to believe, and I personally believe that's not true. I believe that love can spread faster than evil, although it doesn't seem like that in our country, right? When you look at things, it seems like it's the other way around, and that makes me sad. But I guess it's just a personal belief. And I think that if, for example, like I just believe that one small act of love can ripple out, and so it can spread faster than evil, but that's just on an individual sort of level. I don't know. It's hard to say, because when you look at all these things that are happening in the world, it makes you kind of feel like, wow, does evil really spread faster than love? And I don't know. I guess it's up to each of us to determine if we're going to be spreading love or spreading evil. And I think that if more of us can spread love, that it can combat the evil that is in the world.
I like that. Yes, I like that. Let's all individually make that choice. And then
Right.
we won't be asking this stupid question. But
Right.
I that's why I
Right.
asked the question, because I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a very, very difficult question, and I just don't have a easy answer for it. And it feels like a very, yeah, it just feels like a really hard question to think about. And especially with all that we have going on in our world today, it's a lot of things are very sad, and people are experiencing so much trauma, so much grief. And
Yeah.
I'd like to believe that love spreads faster than evil, but I just don't know. I just don't know what that means for the world, and if enough people have that love basis or that love foundation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And how do we do that? I don't know. I'm going to come up with the answer. Give me another 10 years. I'll have the answer for you.
Come on, you can do it in 5.
Okay, you're challenging me. Well, thank you so much. I have a couple more questions. One
Sure.
question is, what is the one book you would advise all women to read?
So here's the thing. I love to read. And so it depends on, where I'm at in my life. But recently, I am going to say that one of the books that I highly, highly recommend that I've just recently finished reading is Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
Oh, okay. Never heard that
Untamed.
one. Okay.
And I feel like the reason why is it's very real. There's just a lot of great advice for women in the book. She writes it as a memoir, and it's just a real true wake-up call. It's about, trusting ourselves, setting boundaries, making peace with ourselves, honoring things like our anger and heartbreak, learning how to trust ourselves. And she just really shows us through this book how to be brave and courageous as women. So that's just one of the books I would highly recommend. And it's a great book. I just really couldn't put it down. And for women, I would recommend it.
Nice. What is the one thing that you can't miss doing every day?
Yeah, good question. So for me, there's sort of a combination of meditating, reflecting, prayer, listening to positive and uplifting videos on, YouTube or whatnot. It could be sometimes reading something from a spiritual book or a self-help book, but really it's doing something every day to connect with and nurture my soul and my spirit, connect me with my divine essence and my higher self. Some days it's a combination of all those, or, sometimes it's being out in nature, but it's really that idea of connecting with my inner essence. And you can do that in multiple ways, but I would say that's really what I have to do every day in some form or another.
Okay. Why did that start, or how did that start? Like, there was a time when I would wake up in the morning and it would be like, I hate the day already. And, and all the negative things, you're fat, you're whatever. So I started doing it just to cut the voice out from the minute I wake up in the morning. What was that for you? What brought that thing that you can't miss every day? What sparked it?
Yeah, I mean, that's another great question. It's very similar to what you're saying. It's this idea of training my mind to think positive, becoming mentally stronger, focusing on the good, focusing on the gratitude, cutting out like you said, the negative thoughts of this day sucks, this is going wrong, I don't like this, why is this happening? All these things that swirl around in our minds. It's like, okay, to try to get a handle on that and connect with the that inner knowing, trusting ourselves, and really replacing those like negative thoughts with positive practices and positive words and affirmations and meditations and reflections, to just, again, like to train your mind to think more positively, because it doesn't do us any good, or it doesn't do me any good to ruminate on the negative. And so, yeah, I would say something very similar to like how you said that is like, just a knowing that I've got to do something here. And I need something to bring me back into the truth, into the light.
Yes. Yeah. Purposeful and active. I'm glad that you said that, because we think that positivity just kind of, I don't know what people think actually, how it happens, but it doesn't happen by accident. And we know the world, like you were saying, the world's feeding us all this death, destruction, hate, and anger, and all that.
Right.
Getting all those messages everywhere else. How are you replacing it? It's just going to repeat in your head.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, and then too, it's like, okay, what are we also feeding our minds with? Just like we feed our bodies.
Yeah.
What are we feeding our bodies with, right? So we eat the food that nourishes our body, but what are we feeding our minds?
Yeah.
And so that's so important to me. It's like, what am I feeding my mind every day that's going to nourish my mind, my spirit, my soul?
Yeah.
And it sounds so, I don't know, cliche or silly or simple, but it really, after you do it, and you make it a practice, it really does help.
Yes.
And you have to just kind of make it a practice of doing these things a little bit each day. And, maybe you only can have 2 or 3 minutes one day, but maybe some days you can do 15 minutes of a meditation or something.
Yeah.
And you just do what you can and take it like one day at a time. But it's so important to feed our minds and our bodies and our spirits with just good, healthy food.
Yes. Yeah. It is simple, but we miss it. I don't know why. Like we drink our water, we eat our vegetables, all that stuff we can believe in, but then, feeding your mind is just mumbo jumbo nonsense. But
yeah,
it needs to be fed too. So thank you. That's a really great, I love that because your mind needs to be fed. Yeah. Just like your body. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's that
so
simple,
important.
but that important. It's so much more important than it is simple.
Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what is the best way for our audience, anybody listening, to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. So feel free to give me a call or give me a text. I've always got my phone on me, and you can reach me at 860-729-3313. Or if you'd prefer doing just an email, you can just email me at RebeccaLemanski@yahoo.com.
Okay.
You can also find me on LinkedIn if you'd rather do the LinkedIn or Facebook. I'm on Facebook, and my last name is spelled Lemanski. And feel free to connect.
And we can get in touch with you. And I encourage any of those company owners or community builders or diversity leaders to really get in touch with you, because resiliency is a real thing. And I'm really accepting that today, because it's not just a word. It almost takes self-help to another level. I don't know if I'm bringing the resiliency down, but you've had trauma, and now how do you rebound? Rather than just knowing I had the trauma. Now, how do we rebound from it?
Yes.
As a community, as people, as families, as businesses. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things I'll leave you with is that the resiliency informed perspective asks us questions like, what is right with you and what are your strengths?
Nice. Okay.
And so that's very important, right? When we make that paradigm, that perspective shift. Yeah. So it goes a lot deeper than just, kind of like, you can think about it as bouncing back, but it goes a lot deeper, because these trainings teach us about trauma and the brain and the effects on the body and the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, and how we can bring ourselves back into a state of balance through the use of these very simple skills. And again, it's just by practicing them.
Nice. Thank you so much. I learned more than I expected to, and I'm excited to see what's in the future for you. Who knows? Maybe get my organization involved. We'll see. We'll see what the future brings.
Thanks. That would be great. Yes. Thank you so much. Yes, please reach out to me if you want to bring a training. It's again, RebeccaLemanski@yahoo.com. That's the easiest way. And I definitely appreciate being here with you today, Julia. And let me know if you want to bring a training to your company, maybe at some point in the future.
Yeah, because there's a lot of trauma going on, and I think it makes people cranky, and you don't know why they're behaving the way they're behaving. Yeah,
absolutely.
So thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. This has been such a joy.
You've been listening to the F50 Woman Podcast. Join the F50 Woman movement and this diverse group of voices to help change the world one woman at a time. Why should you join at your age? Because we're not done yet.